Hello and welcome to the Hoop Troop podcast. I am Matt O'Connor, and joining me as he does on all of our shows is my cousin Luke Drobner.
What's up, guys?
So as promised last month, we would record more frequently. I blame myself. It's been a month since we did that. I got sick. I moved into an apartment and I'm about to start grad school. Things got a little crazy, but we're back. We're definitely going to record more frequently. And in this episode, we have plenty to discuss since the last time we spoke, it was before the draft, before free agency, before summer league, before a lot of stuff happened. So Luke, we got a ton to talk about. If there's one thing we want to start on, I would like to start with the draft. I feel like that's the natural starting point here because it pretty much kicked off the entire offseason and it started right around the time the season ended. So I think that's a good place to pick up.
I 100% agree we should start with the draft. And then obviously we have to talk about some of the roster changes because I think a lot of the teams, even some of the contenders, look completely different. So
for sure. Absolutely. All right. So let's see what I'm looking right now at just the summary of how the draft went.
First overall pick, Cade Cunningham. No surprise.
No surprise. Jalen Green going number 2.
Watching Summer League, I've been very impressed with Jalen Green. And he only played like 2 or 3 games, but
right.
I thought he looked very good. So
well, and I think it's interesting because I for several reasons. One, I'm sure that G League Ignite system where he's playing against grown men made that transition
used to playing
easier.
that.
Right. And so I think that
Summer
totally
League
helped.
is his level of play right now.
Right. So I think that helped. The other thing that I like Jalen Green. I think he's good, and I think he's going to be a great player. Right. And I actually think the Rockets could be like a fun team to watch this year, just with like him, John Wall, Christian Wood. They're not great. They're going to be terrible, but they'll be they're watchable for sure. Yes. Like there are elements to their game that I think like I'm intrigued to watch. Like I want to see him play. I want to see a full year of Christian Wood in this offense because he looked good before he got hurt. John Wall,
he's like 90 overall in 2K. Christian Wood.
Right. Yeah, but that's my point. Like
I don't care if John Wall stays healthy or not. I want to see their rookies. They had a whole bunch of
Şengün.
He didn't. So like I just want to see them do something, especially because Christian Wood's so versatile. You can play him in a lot of positions. You can play lineups, and so
they also they have good pieces right now, like enough that you're going to predominantly play your young players and let them make mistakes and grow, and you're going to be a bad young team. But also, you throw in John Wall, Eric Gordon, you have these players in your system where it's a pretty good influence to have on your younger players. So
they drafted Şengün. They also have Garuba at 23 and Josh Christopher at 24. That's 4 players, right? So, and they all looked pretty. Garuba didn't play in Summer League because he was at the Olympics with Spain, but they all looked good during their summer goes.
Right. And so I think, yeah, totally. The one thing I have an issue with Jalen Green is, have you seen him complaining? He's like, I'll never forget who passed on me. I should have gone 1. All right. First of all, I get it. If you fell 15 and a ton of teams passed on you, fine. You could be a little bitter. You went number 2 overall, and it was the consensus number 1 went in front of you. And he's
a confident young man.
No, come on. How many times has anyone? It's not even it was Melo going 4 with Darko Milicic in front of him.
Sure.
It's not like that. It's not like that at all. It's.
I think you got to draft Cade just because he has that LeBron, Luka, those type of players, right? And he's gonna at some point, or possibly can be the best player on a championship team, right? He has that build. He has that IQ. So. You got to go there. Jalen Green too. He's.
I don't want to compare them because I don't think they're equal. But I look at for example, Kevin Durant going 2nd. Did we hear this out of his mouth? No, we didn't. He went 2nd overall and was fine. That's.
I think it's that shooting guard. If you play forward, you're probably a little more mellow. If you play a shooting guard in the NBA, think about all the crazy, obnoxious, arrogant shooting guards.
I guess they're also playing similar positions. So you have that argument that it's he is truly better than me. It's not a fit thing. But even so then, if you look at the way the draft unfolded, I compared Jalen Suggs going 5 as a far bigger snub than him going 2.
I don't know about that. You kind of knew Jalen Suggs was going to go like 4, 5, 6. I thought it was interesting that the Raptors took Scotty Barnes, which now that I've seen some of Scotty Barnes and I'm more familiar with him, I think Scotty Barnes is the right pick at 4. But
I don't know. Jalen Suggs looked damn good. I mean, they all did. Honestly, like this is a weird draft.
A lot
like,
of them did.
It's super deep. Like I think there are plenty of these guys that we're going to look back on this 5-10 years from now and be like, oh, like how, for example, looking at Jalen Suggs at 5, are there really 4 players in this draft better than him? I wouldn't be surprised if 5-10 years down the line, we're like, no. But at the same time, if there are, I also wouldn't be surprised. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the 4 in front of him.
I think Jalen Suggs has a lower ceiling than Scotty Barnes, and they have a similar floor, you know?
Interesting.
And that has nothing to do with Suggs being a bad player or anything like that. It has to do with measurables. I think Scotty Barnes is very athletic. I think he's like 6'8", 6'9", and that's the difference, right?
But right. I mean, I think that as far as your ceiling goes, yes, if you have that genetic build, it helps. At the same time, I think Jalen Suggs is so complete with the way that he distributes the basketball, his court vision, his ability to just his scoring ability alone.
Yeah.
You put all these things together, like he's so in control for a rookie. It's crazy. And you can only imagine it's going to develop over time. So I feel like his floor is higher, but you're right. If you have someone with that build who can develop into something great, it goes a long way when you have those intangibles that you can't teach. You can't teach height. Is from a young age. Exactly. I always heard that. Can't teach height. And
you look at it like 6, Josh Giddey, you would have never expected him to get drafted that high, but
no,
they continue to talk about him. He's a 6'8" point guard, shooting guard type player. So
right.
The Thunder are looking to do a very long rebuild. They have SGA. So why not? Right? Like if he's average, he's average. He's your 6th man, 7th man, right?
I mean, they're taking risk right now. That's why they have Poku on the roster, and they're just gonna.
I love that man.
Yeah, I mean, he's fun to watch, but it's worth a risk when you have that many picks stockpiled. Like, you got to take some shots, and you got to go for it. And so, like, they found a guy that they liked, and they took him at 6, and that's what they had to do. That said,
Kuminga
looked good,
7.
Looked really good in summer league.
He looks a lot like Jaylen Brown.
He was a guy I know you were sending those videos. I see it. He was a guy that I was saying felt to me like top 5 talent. But again, getting back to what I said of like, are there 5 guys better than this guy? Like maybe, honestly, like the way that everyone looked in summer league, which I'm trying to back up.
Yeah.
Every year I overreact to summer league. Kevin Knox looked like a god in summer league. Like I can't put too much stock in it, but they looked good. And like, there are players who look dominant in summer league and end up being dominant when they actually do reach the league.
100%.
Speaking of looking dominant in the summer league, I'm going to transition slightly, unless there's anything else you wanted to touch on from the draft. But
I mean, we can just continue to go down. It gets a little less interesting as we get down there. But
so the thing that I was going to point out, and it'll probably flow back into the draft as a whole, is looking at the guys from last year's draft, but who are playing in summer league. Second year guys.
Quickly.
I mean, he looked fantastic, but not even just him. Like, I think obviously Halliburton and LaMelo didn't play, but you had plenty of these guys from last year's drafts who didn't have an offseason, didn't have a summer league last year, didn't have a training camp, barely practiced during the season because games were so tight. It was just a crazy year. Looked impressive. Now that they've had at least some time to practice together, they looked pretty damn good. And you can extend that to like Okongwu in the Olympics. Like, I think guys like that who in their second year, now that they've had some time in a system to develop, you're seeing them improve. So I can actually see a lot of guys. I know normally you hit that like sophomore slump type thing. I almost think the opposite's going to happen this year. I think you're going to have a lot of guys last year where we were saying this draft class isn't that good. We're going to end up being like, wait a minute, we were wrong. So many of these guys are actually very impressive, and we just overlooked it because of the circumstances of the COVID lockout type season.
I caught a little bit of Patrick Williams on the Bulls.
Oh yeah, he's very good.
Bulls. I was very impressed with the little bit I saw of him. I thought that was
for sure.
I thought he looked really good, and I think they get rid of Thad Young. I think he can kind of fit that role, especially now that the Bulls look completely different. So,
Right.
but
No, and I mean, like, even look at like both of the Celtics rookies from last year, Pritchard and Nesmith. Like, they looked great in the summer league. I just think there's so many of these guys that, for example, for those guys, I got to be honest with you, like, I kind of overlooked. Like, yeah, Pritchard was playing well at the beginning of last season, then kind of slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, he had like a quick little spurt, and then that was it. But no, like, I mean, and again, trying not to overreact to summer league, but there are guys who you look at summer league and you say they're like too good for this. That's not the point of summer league. It's supposed to be an audition for a team. And then you have guys in there who are like clearly, like, basically, if you were to have taken, I don't know, who's a good player on a bad team but is young.
A good player but on a bad team. I don't know anybody on the Kings.
Like a year 3 guy. Like a year, yeah. Let's say like a year 3.
Ball on the Nuggets. I guess that's a good team though. Jalen Noel. I think he's.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what team he's on. I think he's Lakers.
If you would have taken
Trey Jones on the Spurs,
fine, would look much better than any of the summer leaguers. And realistically, like, yeah, he has a roster spot. He'll play, but he's not great. Like, I think in that setting would definitively look better. And there were a lot of these second-year players who stood out. And
I mean, Tyrese Maxey, 26 points on 19 shots.
100%.
Like Obi Toppin is up here in the top 10 for scoring.
And there were points during last season. I mean, you heard me. I've complained about Obi a ton. Like, he looked lost during the season, but that's why, like, I don't think I put
off minutes. He picked it up throughout the season.
Right, but that's the thing. I don't think I put enough stock into how detrimental it was not having that foundation of a training camp, practices, some summer league to make mistakes against bad players, like, and then start your season and then be in that smaller role and slowly develop it. Like, I think there were elements of that I missed. And so I do. I think we're going to see an impressive rookie class because clearly it looks deep. Because a lot of those guys, honestly, that I saw in summer league that were rookies had that same energy, like almost like the comfort, and like there was a stability in it watching it as a fan where you're like,
sure,
the ball is in good hands right now and you felt in control. Whereas like a lot of the rookies last year during the season, I didn't feel like that. So I think we're going to have
how much of that is the COVID effect where a lot of these guys are coming fresh out of school and getting thrown into NBA games.
For sure.
Right. I think the difference between this year and last year is we see a lot of these guys and they warm up a little bit. Some of them played in the Olympics, right? These guys have given a little bit more of a chance to try and catch up to the pace of an NBA game.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, I'm, again, now getting back.
I think we're going to see a lot of good young players this year. I agree with you. I want to, like, the COVID effect, even though I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but definitely I think it's completely real. I think it's been an awkward year for a lot of people.
For sure.
And obviously it affects basketball.
Right. And you go from the end of the bubble to the start of the season was like maybe a month and a half, if that. And so, like,
I don't even remember.
Yeah, it ended in like November, started right before Christmas. Like, it was very quick turnaround. There was not much time to get acclimated. Like, you had a full-blown offseason. People changed teams, rosters, everything. And you're supposed to just be like, as a rookie, meeting people and going into that. Like, nuts. It was a weird season. So that's why I think this year is going to be a very interesting look at things. Speaking of interesting looks, let's transition a little bit. Free agency. A lot of players have changed sides. I'm going to let you start. Where do you want to start? Because there's a couple teams that I want to talk about.
I'm on the Twitter group.
All right, so you're scrolling. There's an obvious one to start with that I think we could.
I mean, July 29th, Shams tweets out, Washington Wizards have agreed to trade Russell Westbrook.
There we go.
Los Angeles Lakers for Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell.
All right, the one I wanted to start with. Let's start with that. I think the biggest winner of the offseason is the Los Angeles Lakers, but more specifically Russell Westbrook.
Sure.
He has not been around a better collection of players with the perspective of what it takes to win a championship, with a willingness to make sacrifices to do so, than he is on this team. If you look at who's on this roster, you have a ton of veterans who have either won championships or like knocking on the door where their windows closing. and they understand that they're going to accept their role and they're going to do what they have to do. I also think that when you look at the past teams he's been on, he hasn't been in those situations where even himself, he had to kind of make those adjustments. And I don't think there's a better situation to do that than when you're surrounded by LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and then some truly Hall of Fame caliber players in Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo. Like, he's around these people who are going to help him.
Well, Rondo's pretty new. I
won multiple. He has multiple rings. Like, he's pretty much a Hall of Famer.
Rondo, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you that Rondo is, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But, Rondo, when he officially became a Laker today, he was talking, and, obviously you see the tweets and whatnot. He's saying, like, I understand that we're so deep at point guard. How does that look? Who plays on the court? What are the rotations, right? And I agree with Rondo a little bit. Like, who's playing at what time? What are your lineups? And the Lakers have all season to figure that out, right? And you kind of know LeBron's going to be in there. Anthony Davis is going to be there. But when you have LeBron and Westbrook on the floor together, do you have to play Gasol at center? Can you play Dwight Howard, right? Is Melo going to be playing small forward or power forward? Like, what does your defense look like who's LeBron guarding if you're playing Melo and LeBron and Gasol, right? LeBron's got to guard a perimeter player or something, and AD, right? Like, I don't know.
But so that's the thing. I think they have a lot of flexibility because they brought in Kendrick Nunn. They brought in Malik Monk, who, like, whatever, that's not the biggest one. But, like, Kendrick Nunn literally said in a statement that he wants to show that he's a good two-way player and not just an offensive player. I, again, can't think there's a better situation to go show that than the one he's in now, because it's not like they're asking him to make offense. They have plenty of that right now. So you're going to have guys who are committed on the defensive side of the ball, and you're going to have a little versatility. Trevor Ariza, for example, helps with that. Like, I think they have so many combinations that you're right. They're going to have to plug and play and guess and check and see what works and what doesn't. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be issues. There's issues with all championships teams, especially when you just, like, bring in all these guys. They're all older. Like, but at that same rate, I think that there's something to be said about having these guys at this point in their career where they have that same goal in common. It feels like that Lakers team 2 years ago that won in the bubble, where they all knew it was like Dwight's first championship, Rondo's first in God knows how long. Like, you had all these guys who were, it was AD's first championship. It was, not that KCP matters, but it was his first. It was everyone's, like, they really understood that they didn't care how they got there. They just wanted to win the championship. And that's what it was. And so, like, I think this is a pretty similar exercise. And I mean, looking at the Western Conference, did anyone get better than they did? And my answer
I don't know if it's did anyone get better than they did. I think it's you have an old roster, which means you need to load manage. You're not going to win 50 games in an absolutely loaded West, right? Warriors are healthy now. Nuggets get Jamal Murray back at some point. It's not even like they're a bad team without him. Jazz are still going to be excellent. Clippers are going to be excellent.
Well, Kawhi's out for the year.
Did they say he's out for the year?
Realistically, I mean, odds are he might be able to come back, like, for, like, the tail end of the season, but odds are he's going to be out until at least the playoffs. So, like, that hurts. I mean, like, they could be
so maybe the Clippers regress a little bit, but you still have the Phoenix Suns, who were second in the West last year. Dallas Mavericks are always good. Blazers are always good. The Grizzlies have a young roster. They remove Valanciunas, add Steven Adams. How does that dynamic change things? You're not putting the ball in John Morant's hands. Maybe you allow Jaren Jackson Jr. to be out there a little bit more, because Jaren Jackson Jr. is not really a rim protector, but now you have Steven Adams who can kind of fill in those gaps. Do the Pelicans take a step forward? Do the Timberwolves take a step forward now that they're back and healthy and, they're building something? They got rid of Jared Culver, who's now on the Grizzlies, and they kind of have more of, like, a clear definition of their roster. So you never really know. I think the Lakers make the playoffs, but
interesting. You don't even think they're coming out of the West? Wow.
It really depends where they get seated. I think the Western Conference is a good conference. I think there's a lot of teams that have, like, Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green.
Well,
They still have the ability to make a move with Wiseman on the roster. They've, it's not like Wiggins is a bad option at small forward. So like you have other teams who know what they're doing. And I think a lot of these people are going to come for each other. I think there's going to be a lot of really hard fought series in the West.
I agree. I think that it's very deep. Like I'm now going to look at the Western Conference and just say essentially in my mind who I don't think will be fighting, at least competing for a playoff spot. Houston, OKC, probably the Spurs, but I guess Pop will never give up. But they're realistically not going to be. They're not going to be. I don't think the Spurs
will be around.
And like the Kings are going to try. At a minimum, they're going to try.
Yeah, but okay. So you have.
I think those four teams are the only ones who I like. I think even Minnesota. Like,
so who's the 11th team? I guess I mean Pelicans lost a lot, so
all right. In no particular order, I think these teams are making the playoffs. I think the Lakers, the Clippers, the Jazz, the Suns, the Nuggets, Dallas. I'm going to say Portland and Golden State.
I say Portland. I think it's wrong to doubt Portland. If you think that Portland isn't going to be somewhere between 7 to 4, you're kidding yourself.
All right. So I have Portland and then probably Golden State is my top 8. And then for a 9 and 10, I'm going to say Memphis because they just did it. And then maybe it's either the Pelicans or Minnesota. One of them's 10 or 11 in my eyes.
Right. And I think it's hard fought. In my opinion, I think the Pelicans will come short. Right. And I just think that's because they've lost too much this year. They have no continuity, brand new coach. And then you look at the Timberwolves, same team's coming back. Do they have the same coach? I think it's the same coach.
Yeah.
They in the middle of the season,
but yeah.
But it's the same guy continuing on.
I mean, also another thing,
right?
I was going to say, looking at last season, like they didn't get to see the D'Lo Cat experiment yet. So like
never.
And they do have good pieces. They're young, but they have good pieces. And it's like, I think it could work. Like I don't know. Are they going to raise any banners? No, but like very easily could be a playoff team. I wouldn't be shocked. At a minimum, like the plan,
somewhere,
right?
Somewhere 7 to 10. They're I feel they're a playing team, not a lock, but a playing team.
Yeah,
I don't think they're a top 6 seed.
Let's talk about another team that I don't think did enough this offseason. We both agree they're a playoff team because they have been the past couple of years, but they didn't really make many changes.
The Blazers?
No.
Mavericks?
Dallas.
Yeah.
They pretty much replaced Josh Richardson with Reggie Bullock, which, depending on how you look at their team last year, it could be a marginal upgrade, but like, is it?
I don't think they're going to make any massive changes to this year. From what they did last year, especially with Jason Kidd coming in.
Well,
I still think Porzingis is a problem.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
100%.
I think you need to do something there. I think you need to find a guard pairing with Luka. You need the Kyrie to Luka, right? The way LeBron had Kyrie, Luka's got to have someone like that. He's got to have a Kemba Walker. He's got to have Kemba Walker might not be the best example, but he's got to have that type of guy, a scorer who plays point guard.
And I think that's the issue. I think you're exactly right.
They need a true big. I don't think Porzingis gets it done at center. And the other guys they have playing the rotation aren't going to get it done either.
No. And that's the thing. Like I've never joined in on the Jason Kidd like hate train that a lot of people are on. And apparently in that Giannis book that just came out, like there's a good chunk to be disappointed in him.
Right.
But I like Giannis, even before Jason Kidd got fired out of Milwaukee, like loved Jason Kidd, was like happy with him. I think he could very much have a good impact on Luka. I do not think he's the coach for Kristaps because he seems like they seem too hard. The two of them respectively seem very set in their ways with their just mentality and outlook on what needs to get done to win basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
And Kristaps has shown that, like he has that reputation, like even with the past regime in Dallas, like the rumors kept coming out that, he didn't like Luka and he felt like he needed to be more involved and all this instead of doing what he was doing. So
I think that's so wrong. I think if you look at what Luka did for Slovenia in the Olympics, there's nobody on that roster. It was just a bunch of dudes who shot and
yeah,
rebounded. They had a good time. Luka made pretty much every play for them. And the games they lost were when the teams they had an NBA player who defended Luka. Australia had Bible, France had a whole bunch of guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, and I mean,
those are the
you're
teams that
exactly
beat
right.
them.
But that's
So
why I think it's interesting because we agree, like Luca is good enough. Like that team will be in the playoffs. He's just that good.
right,
I could
but
see
why
another
aren't you
first
running
round
that
exit. Like
offense? But
they could
that's
be,
what very easily it's going to be a first round exit, and I think that's just because they don't have the roster set up to conform to make a perfect NBA team around Luka. I think they'd be a great middle of the pack team, but not until you can get a all-star level ball handler and an all-star level big, they won't be anything more.
could we see Luca taking a step toward doing something that LeBron did in '07, where he just is that
Goes
good,
off.
where he's just truly that good and like differentiates himself and is like the next true face, like truly the face of the NBA. I know Giannis kind of is, and like LeBron still is, and Steph, but like
Jokic just won the MVP.
and he doesn't have a Christmas Day game.
No, that was a big deal too. But I don't think Luka makes that type of step. I don't think Luka will ever be a LeBron, but
Well, he's not as
I think
physically
Luka,
imposing, but like he gives me a Jordan energy where he has the ball and like there's a good chance he's either scoring or contributing to the point that's going to happen that play.
but I don't think that happens in the NBA anymore. I
Interesting.
think unless because like you're not gonna let Jordan or Kobe or LeBron, a prime Jordan, a prime Kobe. In the modern NBA, you would never let them ISO anybody. And they're not going to let Luka do that. They double team Curry 30 feet out just to get the ball out of his hands and make someone else make a play. That's the team they have right now. And I think that's just how it happens, right? Like, do you play the Utah Jazz? They're sending a double team at you and they're making they're making Porzingis make a play. Do you want Porzingis to make a play?
And I think that's the problem with you're right. The team as constructed is that you can't, and like, yeah, in most coverages, like regular season and otherwise, Luka's going to be able to go off. But the second it comes to the playoffs, where things tighten and you change up your approach, he'll probably win a couple games. I mean, he took the Clippers to 7, but it's not going to be enough.
That he can take the Clippers to another hard fought first round series.
I mean, most teams you can win a series with one person. You can't win a championship with one person. You really can't. I mean, look, go back in time. When's the last time that happened? Like, I guess people have gotten to the finals. Look at LeBron in '07, Dwight with that Magic team. Like, yeah, like individual players have willed teams places, but it's not enough.
I don't think
LeBron with the Cavs. I keep using LeBron, but
the talent in the NBA and the mathematics that goes on behind the scenes would never allow a single player to dominate like that ever again. No single player will ever lift a team like that ever again. That's just how I feel. It won't happen. That's why, I mean, like, I see all these crazy stats about Jason Tatum. Everyone's like, oh, Jason Tatum's dropping 50. Well, that's because the teams they're playing against want him to drop 50. You're making him make plays and he's making those plays and then they lose. Like, it's about winning games. It's not about scoring points anymore. So
it's a good point.
Points used to win you games.
Right. And I think it's almost like I know it's not the same sport, but it's like the Billy Bean idea. Everyone has looked at everything with a far more analytical focus where it's like, you know what?
100%.
I'm going to use Tibbs now for this example. Looking at the Knicks last season, they're like, we're going to give up all the threes in the world. But you know what? Like, that's the shot we want to give. That's not how, if you're going to beat us that way, beat us that way. And like, unless you're the 2017 Warriors, like, you're not always going to beat us that way. And they didn't. Right. So that's why
logically, Trae Young.
But again, when it comes to the playoffs, you kind of got to adapt, and he didn't. So like, there's that push and pull, but I totally agree with you. Like, I think you look at things and you have to observe what's going on with those teams that you're playing, realize, you know what, I'm okay with allowing this guy to go off a little bit, as long as it means that we shut down options B and C, which is really where we'd end up losing if all of those are open. So I get that.
Teams play the Nuggets that way. It's
Yeah.
like, we're going to, fine. Jokic can get 35, 12 and 12. We don't give a crap,
Right.
But like Jamal Murray is going to have 15 points. Porter Jr. is going to shoot,
Right.
7 for 18. Like, we don't care.
Right. Whereas if Jokic does that and then you have Murray going for his like 35-point game, you're going to lose.
Right.
So they know what they need to stop. And like, it's not.
Okay, we prevent Jokic from scoring. We double team Jokic, but then now, so Jokic has what, a 17-point game, but he's got 25 assists. Murray had 42, right? Like,
yeah.
That's kind of how it comes down to, right? You can let a guy go off. You can let Jason Tatum score 50, but if Jalen Brown has 12 and Kemba Walker doesn't fit their system, who's going to do it for him? No one.
No, you're entirely right. And I think that's a good point of looking at Luka, is that like, yeah, until he gets more perimeter help on that team. And like right now it's Tim Hardaway Jr. Like it's about it.
Steph Hardaway Jr.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Knicks legend stealing from our bank account. But no, like I think Kristaps is truly not a second option, maybe not even a third, with the way he plays in the post. Like he's not going to be a rebounding big that you need. Like he's basically a fourth option, and he's being paid to be a one.
I kind of see him as like a Carmelo Anthony.
No, get out of here. Get out of here.
No. Not a prime. They play the same.
Oh, role. like 36-year-old Carmelo Anthony.
30. Yes.
All right. I can get behind.
He's
that.
Not like prime Knicks Nuggets Melo. No. He'll grab a couple of rebounds. He's smart enough to throw a good pass every once in a while, but when it comes down to it, he shoots the ball. You really need a bucket. You dump it down to him in the post. He'll shoot over somebody small, right?
And like, sucks at it. He's so bad in the post. He's so bad against smaller guys.
You run a pick and roll. You get a switch. Now you got 6.
And he's been bad against it. Him. I don't have the stats. I think he actually came out. I forget who interviewed him. He came out and was talking about it. He was saying like, I'll get switched on to a guy like Marcus Smart, who like I am basically a foot taller than. And like he'll beat me in the post. And like he admitted it and he was candid. And like it was actually, since the trade, one of the few times where I've actually been
impressed with him,
more accepting of him as a player. Because I looked at it and I was like, you know what? He's at least he's showing that like hubris and like the understanding of who he is and what he needs to become. That It wasn't all just like I'm the best and what I say goes. But that said, like this interview happened last season and he didn't get better at it. And he was saying, I'm working on it and that's what I'm going to figure out. And so like, until he actually goes and proves that, it doesn't mean anything. You can say it as much as you want. It doesn't matter until you do it. And so that's why, I think the Mavericks didn't do enough to get better. I think they're going to be in the same position they were in last time. And like, yeah, you know what? Congrats. You locked up Luka long-term. So you have plenty of time to go address it. But like, you got to figure something out because you got to figure he has 5 years. And if you don't do something. The
contract doesn't mean anything. If players
if they don't make him happy, if they don't make him happy in the next 3 years, when there's 2 years left on his contract and he's like, F this is a nightmare. You haven't fixed my roster. We still have Kristaps. If he requests out, like they have no choice.
Isn't Kristaps part of the upcoming free agent class?
No. So he signed when the Knicks traded him in 20, what was that?
He signed an extension.
19.
He signed a extension.
So he has like that long extension. So I think he has 3 years, including this coming year on his deal. Maybe one more after that. I don't know. I'm a little fuzzy, but so I think they do. Like you have them and you have flexibility to figure things out. But until you do have that in the back of your mind that like in the current state of the NBA, if a player wants out, he's going to get out. And especially when there is that like expiration date on a contract, he can go. So that's why I thought this offseason was interesting because it's not even like they made a step forward. They really didn't. And so like, yeah, maybe something happens during the year, but just it felt like a flat offseason. And they made all the changes to the front office and the coaching staff. And like, yeah, that can be a positive because that can totally work, but it can also backfire.
Rick Carlisle's a great coach.
Right.
I don't see it as like we have Jason Kidd instead of Rick Carlisle will be better. I don't see it like that.
No,
but you don't know how their system works. So I guess it's hard to judge right now.
It's almost like you look at I don't want to equate it to the Knicks because it's not the same thing. But you look at a player like Frank Ntilikina, who had 4 coaches over his whole span with the Knicks over his rookie contract. Like, yeah, it's impossible to get into a system. And like you change front offices and things, whatever. Like everyone has different ideas of where the franchise is going as a whole. And you get caught in the crossfire, and whatever you want individually isn't met. And then that leads to frustration, and then you want out. So like, yeah, this change could be a good thing. Maybe it's like, you know what? It was time for Carlisle to go. We had to figure some stuff out, and then we make it work. Or if this backfires, like, yikes, not a good situation. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just generally pessimistic and kind of rooting for them not to do well. So their pick next year is good, and the Knicks, it works out.
Knicks got it.
Yeah, but like, no, I mean, that's
it. You don't know.
Yeah, but all right, let's turn our attention across the aisle. Let's go to the Eastern Conference.
Do we talk about the elephant in the room? Where Ben Simmons today said he wants out. So.
Yeah, no, literally today. We're recording this Tuesday. What is it? The 31st?
The 31st.
31st.
August,
Ben Simmons has officially told the Sixers he wants out, and he's not going to report to training camp. He's not getting traded.
I said that.
He's not getting traded. I mean, who's trading for him right now?
I think, though, the problem right now is, I think we've talked about this before about the scalability of certain skills in the NBA. If you're a good defender, you scale well to a lot of teams. If you're a good shooter, you scale well to a lot of teams. If you're a good playmaker, you're decently scalable. You know, and you look at Ben Simmons' skill set, he can play make. He's a point guard. He can defend. He's 6'10" and athletic.
I mean, he's defensive player of the year, essentially. He didn't win, but I mean, like, pretty much could have last season.
But he can't shoot. And if you look at other guys who have
not only can't shoot, he won't shoot.
Right. And if you look at guys who have the playmaking defensive build, like a Draymond Green, at least Draymond Green at some point in his career shot 35% from 3 or close to.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean,
it's not that Draymond can't shoot. It's just like, okay, I'm not going to shoot if I can get the ball to Curry.
Yes and no. I mean, like, they're drastically different situations. Like, when you have when you have 2 of the best shooters of all time on your team, yeah, you're going to second guess your shots. Ben Simmons not dunking that basketball in the playoffs, like,
okay, it's 100% a confidence issue with Ben Simmons right now.
It's not even a confidence. Like, it almost feels. How do you fix it?
It's a confidence thing. It's a confidence thing
that requires a change of scenery. I think he is done with Philadelphia. I think the Philly fans are done with him. Like, trust the process. The process has been done. Like, the process leads to this. Now it's time to win. And he can't even get out of his own way he really hasn't gotten better since his rookie season. He's doing the same stuff.
No, it's a lot like Lauri Markkanen, right? And Lauri Markkanen was such a great rookie and everyone was so happy. And he's the same player year in, year out. And same with Ben Simmons. And I think a lot of it has to do with confidence. You play in some of the most vicious markets in the NBA or just in US sports, right? Like, Philadelphia is an incredibly hostile environment for sports.
Oh, for
if you don't produce day one and you don't continue to produce at a exceeded level, you're hated amongst the fans. The Mets players started booing their own fans.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about this right now because I'm angry. But so being a New York Mets fan, I look at this situation. I think actually this is the perfect way I'm going to look at it through the Ben Simmons lens.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know, the Mets were supposed to be a playoff team this year. By all measurements at the beginning of the season, projections, they probably were going to be a playoff team. They were in position to be by the All-Star break. Then all of a sudden, for the past month, they've just been losing games. The players are batting like 150 to 200, like horribly, can't score runs. So they've been getting booed. At home, they have been getting booed. They traded for Javi Baez at the deadline from the Chicago Cubs. He comes in. He's not happy about it. So Francisco Lindor, who's a first-year Met, who they just signed to a 10-year extension at $350 million, as they start playing a little better, that maybe they hit like a single or a double, they'll turn, and it looks like they're addressing the dugout, but like also kind of just the general stance as a whole, and do like a big thumbs down celebration, like 2 thumbs down. They're kind of laughing. It comes out in the past couple days. The celebration means that they're booing the fans back because they're saying, you know what, you're going to boo us when we're bad. We're going to boo you when we're good. So they're basically just giving giant middle fingers to the Mets fans.
It's violently toxic.
But here's the thing. Ben Simmons
it's not
is
like the New York Mets fans are gonna stop either, right? Like
no,
they're gonna.
Of course not. It would make me boo them harder.
The fucking argument.
Yes,
right. Like
here's the thing, and I'm not even gonna get into how much money he makes. I don't think that's a thing. I think as a whole, your profession is public. It's no different than like celebrities with paparazzi and tabloids writing stuff about the things they do. You're going to have people react positively when you do things right, negatively when you do things wrong, especially when they're prolonged. And when you're in a big city like New York that understands, appreciates, and truly like when watching sports has a reverence for it that I think most cities don't have the same appreciation for. So I think when you come here, if you win, that's why look at last season with the Knicks. Julius Randle winning in New York, like the player, we hated him 2 years ago because he was 2 years ago. He was like turning the ball every 2 seconds. I wanted him off the team. He plays well for 1 year and he's a god in New York. Like literally, I couldn't imagine how I felt 2 years ago now. I love the guy. He's awesome. But he heard those boos 2 years ago. He did. He's talked about it. He's like, I know I was bad and I wanted to be better. And so I got better and I went and did it. And he challenged himself to fix that.
Exactly. It's a confidence thing. When you draft a guy first overall and you pay him the max and he plays in a big city, you expect him to have some type of ability to build upon his game. And as a basketball player myself, who has struggled with parts of my game, like shooting, it comes down to confidence. The difference between me shooting a 3-point shot today and me shooting a 3-point shot 3 months ago when I couldn't hit one was just a matter of fact of me like, you know what, I can hit this shot. And I think Ben Simmons struggles from that in lots of parts of his game. He plays in a huge city, and when he makes the smallest little mistake, it compounds. And I think, you know, we
really
talk about,
think that though? Like, do you really think that's
I really
why?
do.
You think if he was in Orlando, this would never even be a conversation?
If he was in a situation where his development was given time, people encouraged him to make plays.
I mean, he had time. The Sixers.
No, he didn't. As soon as Embiid came back, it was go time. As soon as they made the playoffs one time, it was like, this is the process. I want to see what's happening. And he was rushed. He was like 21 when they were in the playoffs, right? Like people expected so much of him.
He's still young.
He's still very young, right? Like he could go to a different team and completely change his game and be the number one prospect we wanted him to be. He 100% could, right? He could be the LeBron we thought he could be.
I mean, he's only 24. Like he is young. But I guess he's 24 or 25. I don't know when his birthday is. But anyway, like you're right. Very young. But comparatively, let's use Giannis, for example. Mm-hmm. He can't shoot. I mean, look at the countdown with him at the free throw line.
He can score. He has the mindset to score. He has the confidence to drive you into the paint and dunk all over you.
But
supreme confidence. He's so confident.
So I'm gonna use your argument against you because the Bucks have been in the playoffs the past few years, and the timeline is generally the same. Missed the playoffs for the first few years he was in the league, made the playoffs, and suddenly it was like fear the deer, it's time, Giannis, whatever.
But it was his timeline. With Simmons, it was always Embiid's timeline.
Interesting. I guess that's
Embiid is the man on that team. Embiid's ready to be the dominant big he's been. It's Embiid's time to shine in the playoffs. And Simmons being there makes it hard for Embiid to be completely Embiid. And people expect Simmons to be better, and it takes away from Simmons' game.
All right. So then what do you think the answer is? Trade him? And where?
Addition by subtraction. I think the Sixers are crazy trying to get a James Harden haul. You're not going to get that.
But why?
Take your best possible deal.
He has such a unique skill set.
100%.
Such a unique skill set, and he's young.
He's going to go to another team who's going to fully appreciate him. Let's say he goes to a team like the Rockets, they're going to take full advantage of whatever he can do at his best. He goes to the Golden State Warriors, he's going to be amazing. He can go to a million teams, he'd be amazing. He's an amazing player. I think in a different situation, in a city that wants him to be there and makes him feel comfortable, he's going to be an amazing player. He's going to be an all-star. He's going to be a all defensive team. But it's not about it's about getting him off your roster. It's about,
and I think that's the problem. The teams that will
trading
want
Ben
him,
Simmons, you're trading Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers. You're not trading Ben Simmons of the Golden State Warriors, right?
But so here's the reason I think it's very hard to make a trade happen is because if they're trading for him, you think you're competing right now. At a minimum, you're not making that trade to be bad. You're not.
No, you've taken a step from being bad to being a buying team, meaning that you're a piece or two away from being a contending team.
Right. Whereas if you're going to do that, you're not trading any winning pieces back. Odds
are. You're trading role players.
Right.
Who cares?
But the Sixers
act like this. The Sixers are so stupid. You haven't. They really, really are. I really think they're a mismanaged team, and because you have Embiid is a number one star, proven, all NBA player, all star, all defensive team, outstanding player all around. You have Tobias Harris, who's an all star on the Clippers. When you put the ball in his hands, he makes good plays. He's a guy who can get you 20 points a night, easy, 20, 25 points a night. So who do you need? You need a third player, right? And I sent a tweet today. You could trade him to the Timberwolves, D'Angelo Russell. I don't know who Beasley is. I don't think he's on their roster anymore.
He is. Beasley, he is.
Yeah, from the Nuggets. Okay. D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jalen or Jaden McDaniels, and some draft picks. You go to the Kings, Buddy Hield, who's one of the best shooters in the league. What's your biggest problem on the Sixers right now? You don't have enough spacing. Hield solves that problem. Bagley, a reclamation project, right? You can try and turn that into something productive off the bench. Harrison Barnes, who I think would be a really great fit at forward for them, following up Tobias Harris, or even just starting, and he's a good shooter, he's a good defender. Tyrese Halliburton. You can go to the Raptors, Siakam, Anunoby, and Dragic. You can go to the Warriors, Wiseman, Wiggins, and draft picks, right? Like, these are role players, maybe not so much the Warriors, but the Raptors deal. Why wouldn't you take that Raptors deal? Siakam's not
right.
You can. Siakam's a good defender, versatile defender, can shoot corner threes.
Oddly enough, I think in that package, the biggest element coming back, and I'm not saying that this is what fixes the Sixers, is having Dragic come back. I don't think they have that point guard threat where if Embiid comes up and sets a pick, you need the defender to go over it. You need a guy who's a threat from the perimeter and who can penetrate and kick and be a good facilitator. Dragic has proven that he can do that through years in the league. There are better options. Like, I wish they had gone harder for Lowry this summer, but that is an element of a Sixers team that has been missing this whole time because you've been using Ben Simmons as the ball handler in the pick and roll. And so,
right, but you can even run a pick and roll with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris's best play on the Clippers was a pick and roll. Zubac.
But that's the thing. If he penetrates into the lane, he's not the type of guy who's going to kill you with his court vision. And so I think you need that.
No, but he's going to score it. He's 6'9".
But that's not
floaters, mid-range.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think that's the issue. I think you need a strong point guard. I think you need someone with Ben Simmons' vision, but with a jump shot.
I don't think,
and he doesn't have to be big.
I think you need someone who creates offense, and Embiid creates offense just by posting up. You're also double team, instant offense.
I think it needs to be more of like a Stockton Malone, where you have a very smart point guard and just a giant ass big man, and it works. Like, that's how I look at this team. I think Embiid is built that way. Like, I don't look at Tobias Harris as like the Kobe to a Shaq. Like, I think it's gotta be more of like it's a good example. Like, I don't know.
I think you could do it with. I don't think you need a real point guard in today's NBA.
Well, I also think you have to look at the landscape of the conference just to escape the East because they just haven't even come close. I think the Nets are the clear-cut favorite, and like even if they're,
Yeah.
if I mean, you
In
can't
all
count on to
honesty,
be.
if you're in the East and you're not the Bucks, it's over.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think I agree. I totally agree. The Nets aren't particularly deep, but with buyouts and things, you never know what's going to happen during the year. Um,
well, I
my
mean,
issue with the Nets, though, is the same thing as last year. Like, you cannot count on those three guys to stay healthy. And so I
I think you
think
can.
Harden is the only one
You
who
need two of them.
throughout Harden's career is the only one who's been pretty durable. Kyrie definitely is not. Like he's missed time pretty much every season. And
Sure.
Durant, like he missed so much time last year with that hamstring injury, which is a little concerning when you're coming off of major
I
surgery.
I don't
Like
care. I think if you can have two of them healthy for any given playoff series, they'll
you have a
beat
shot.
whatever team. Yeah. And I think we fail to remember like they have Patty Mills on their roster now, who's a
Oh
proven
yeah, that's right.
champion. I
They're about
think
to buy out DeAndre Jordan and get that guy out of
yeah,
there.
which is barely played. Blake
Yep.
Griffin's still on the roster. Joe Harris is a good player. Bruce
Yeah.
Brown, besides his one playoff mishap, I think is a
No,
good
he's a
option.
solid role player for that team. But that's my
Um,
point. Is like outside of that, it's not particularly deep. Like it's really not.
uh,
Like Elise
I sent
Johnson, I
another
guess, is on the
tweet.
team, but like he's not great.
Okay, I sent another tweet yesterday. DeAndre Jordan likely out. Alexander Johnson roster spot is shaky at best. Brooklyn's roster flexibility for two more players. They could always bring back LaMarcus Aldridge if he's fit to play. And Paul
Right.
Millsap is still a free agent, and Paul Millsap
He'd be a
wants
good
to win
fit.
a championship. I'm sure.
He would be a good fit there.
Power forward center who can shoot. I think he'd
Eh,
be a good option after Blake Griffin. So
a little physical. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that's all you really need, right?
But that's in the
And
category of like older buyout type players that I think would be a good fit.
look at the
Um,
Lakers. The Lakers are going to go to the championship, no?
I mean, I would imagine. Like I think
Right. That's what I
they're
mean. You don't need a roster that's going to play every night. You just need a roster that,
is healthy at the
when
right time.
completely healthy, right? And I think
Which
the Nets
is,
know
I
that. I
mean,
think the
that's
Lakers know that.
realist.
You take it nice and easy. You coast a little bit. There's going to be a lot of load management. We know that.
I think something we're realizing is that you don't necessarily need home court through the playoffs anymore. You don't. If you have these teams that are
No,
this powerful and this like seasoned as far as their experience in the playoffs, like you
it
don't.
definitely helps.
For
Like
sure. Oh,
I'm
100%.
sure I'm sure
Look at
the
the Bucks
Bucks.
last year. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But
right.
like
So
they didn't have home court in the finals. Didn't matter. You know,
they won in
it mattered
six
in the
though. They
first
won at
two games.
home,
Yeah. Well, they won
but
one
I
on the
will.
road. They took one on the
They
road.
they took Game 7 against the Nets, but
And they took, yeah.
that
No, I
was
mean, I
an
agree
inch
though.
away. That was a big toe length away from a
Hey,
loss.
but you know what? I mean, it happened. Like it just, things go that way.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
I mean, think about
Uh,
there are plenty of shots that have missed by a hair. Look at, I'm sure Gordon Hayward's thinking about that from his college shot from half court
yeah,
against
the
Duke. Like
100%.
you miss things by a hair every once in a while. Like it just happens, but it's part of the game.
Kawhi is like bouncing off the rim five
Oh,
times.
100%. Like there's just a
Crazy.
ton of things like that. But that's why
Uh,
I'm looking at the East and like, yeah, the Nets probably would have won last year too if they were healthy, but they weren't.
I
You can't count
yeah,
on it.
I
I
think you see a
think,
lot of teams get better, but at the end of the day, it's Bucks Nets.
yeah, I mean, I think the Eastern Conference as a whole got stronger. Like I think there were a lot of moves that helped. I think let me actually I'll walk down the list right now.
I mean,
But
I just
I
want to right here. I think the Charlotte Hornets take another step, and
yeah,
they're
for
going to be
sure.
I think they're a play-in lock. Indiana Pacers
The
were riddled
Bulls
with injuries last year. I think they're going to be good.
and they
Of
have
course, we're going to talk about the
Carlisle.
Bulls.
Yeah.
The Celtics. I want to see what the Celtics look like without all those injuries. And I think
It's a little
removing Kemba
ugly.
Walker from that roster
I mean, they had
benefits them.
Schroeder. Yeah. I mean, I think that they made changes that they needed to make. I just think like again,
Also,
kind of like the Mavericks. I feel like it's marginal. Like, and maybe
yeah,
there's just a better
but
cohesion now with a new front
I
office and
think
new coach. But
I think they're a playoff lock, and if they get the right seeding, they can move on to the second round. But if
I
they
think
continue to stay
at a minimum, a play-in team. Like they're no worse than that.
they're a playoff lock. That's
Yeah.
what they're gonna fall somewhere between 3 to 8, no doubt.
Right. I think Miami they got better, definitively better. I think they're a top 4
100%
seed.
better.
I
I
think the
think the
top
Knicks have to take a step
four,
back.
I think they take a step back too. I agree. I think their roster is better. I just think the conference is better. And I
It's
think they take
better.
a step back. Like, I don't think they're going to have the same success, but
And the Wizards
are
replace.
worse.
No, the Wizards have more depth, but they replaced Westbrook with Dinwiddie, who's not a bad option.
No, but we don't know what he's going to look like post injury. But they did add depth from that Westbrook trade. So, like, yeah, like I think there's enough
And
there that they'll
Thomas
be
Bryant's
okay.
coming back from an injury too. So, and they still have Montrezl Harrell.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a question of whether or not they dump Beal midseason or not, because there's a chance it happens. Like this year feels like the year that it's almost like their last experiment, and if it's not working, they dump them.
If they're bad, they got to.
Yeah, and that's like again remains to be seen, but that's kind of the only thing. But like even you look at like Toronto, they're not going to be bad, and they're not playing in Tampa
I think
anymore.
Toronto's going to be terrible.
No, I don't think terrible at all. I think they're gonna. I mean, with Van Vliet, Anunoby, Siakam,
So
you
maybe a
have.
playing team.
Yeah, I mean, no. But like, I'm not even.
But what teams are they better
competitive.
than? That's what I'm trying to say. They're going to be competitive.
They are good enough where it's not like you walk into their arena and it's a win. So like, I think there's enough to be said there where I think the Eastern Conference, like most games, unless it's Detroit, Orlando, and like to a lesser degree Cleveland. Like Cleveland's another one like that though. Like they're
Sexland plus
Sexland, Mobley, Jared Allen. Like it's not a bad team. It's not good. It's not winning anything.
I would compare them a lot to like the Pelicans or the Timberwolves on the Western Conference, where it's like, yeah, they're a tough team to beat, right? You got to show up and you got to win that game. But if you show up and win that game is winnable.
Right.
If you're a top team in the West. And if you're a top team in the East, those games are winnable. You step into Toronto, it's a winnable game.
Yeah. Well, my look at the Eastern Conference is I think the top 4 teams are pretty much a lock. I think it's going to be the Nets, the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Heat in whatever order it is, depending.
I think the Sixers will fall out of the top 4. I think the Hawks are the Heat. I think the Hawks are the Heat.
I was going to say the Hawks are probably 5 in my eyes because I think they're about the same team as last year. And I think like the Knicks aren't the team in front of them, but the Heat are.
You have to remember how they went to it. They started very slowly and then picked it up at the end.
They went to the conference final. I mean, for good reason. They went to the conference finals. They were damn good. And
Miami got a lot better. I mean, I think the Bulls are up there with Atlanta or Miami.
I think the Bulls are in like the Knicks range. I think they're comparable, if not better than the Knicks, but like probably in that like 7-8 range where like you're gonna be in the play-in, but you could go anywhere from like 7 to 10.
I could see the Bulls being as high as 3,
really
lower than 9. I think if they get it together very quickly, it's going to be easy for them. I think they have a lot of high IQ players. Lonzo Ball, I think, is a great addition. DeMar DeRozan is a smart player. I think, we see him on the Raptors. He's a scorer. We see him on the Spurs. He does a little bit of everything, right? So you don't really know what you're going to get out of him.
And a full season of Vucevic, too.
A full season, right? That's what I mean. And it's not like...
And Levine.
And he's a top player. Vucevic is a top player. Levine is an all-star, right? So you got 2 all-stars, a fringe all-star, and Lonzo Ball as your 4th best player. That's a good team.
Yeah, they're good.
If they get it together, they'll be if they come out right out the gate hot, they'll be the 3. In reality, it's going to take them a little bit of time to get it together, and they're going to fall somewhere between 5 to 7.
I think they're more in that like 7 to 10 range. I think it's going to be like
so?
I think it's going to be like them, the Knicks, the Pacers, and like the Hornets in that range. And then I think above them, it's going to be and Boston. I'll throw Boston in. I think any of those teams are going to be in the, like, I guess, and I'll say 6 to 10-ish range. And then I think it's going to be, Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Miami ahead of them. And so I think the rest of them, like, it is kind of random. Like, I think they're all deep teams. They're balanced. They have strong players. It's a question of who takes a jump, who has good cohesion, who stays healthy during the season. So, like, I don't
think the Hornets are going to be in the play-in. I don't think the Hornets make the playoffs this year. And I think the Bulls take their spot. And I think the Wizards will probably be like 9-10.
Interesting. I think Washington misses, and then Charlotte is that team. But all right, so we're generally pretty aligned on this, though.
I think I don't think we see the same energy out of Charlotte. I think they're a good team, but they lost Devontae Graham.
Yeah.
They still don't have an option at center, really. Who do they bring in?
They brought in Plumlee? No? Am I making that up?
But like, how big of an upgrade is that over who they had before? Was it the other Plumlee brother? It was a Zeller brother.
Oh, yeah. They brought in Plumlee and they lost Zeller. But like they also...
Right. So like how much of an upgrade is that?
Again, it's a question of how healthy they can stay. But like a team of LaMelo, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Terry Rozier, Plumlee, Oubre. I love Bouknight. I've loved them in the draft. Gordon Hayward. Like they have some guys.
But they're so young. So young. Like, sure. I don't think Bouknight steps in and makes that impact, right? No. I think LaMelo Ball is going to continue to be great. You have guys at the wing, Oubre, Bridges, Washington, Hayward. You bring in an interesting rookie like Kai Jones, and you have a marginal upgrade at center. But like, where does that really get you? Like, I just can't see them beating out some of these other teams, especially with the top of the East becoming more electric. With like, Miami, I think is going to be very good. The Hawks, I think, are going to continue to be good. I think the Sixers take a step back. They're not going to be the 1 seed, but they'll probably be up there somewhere between 1 to 5.
Right.
The Nets and Milwaukee are going to be in those top 2 spots. Like you really,
right.
They've separated themselves from the rest of the East.
Exactly. I think there's definitely a drop off. But I mean, again,
and I think the Pacers are better this year.
There's so much that can change. There's so much that can change as the season goes. You have no idea. So like,
with injuries
but as of the status as of August 31st, I pretty much think it's a 2-dog race in the conference. Like and realistically, it's the Nets. But
so when the Sixers are good next year, do you buy into the hype?
No, but I think that's when you trade Ben Simmons. I don't think it happens before the season, but I think you let his status go up a little bit and then you dump him.
Yeah, like a James Harden, you let him play like 15 games and then.
I mean, yeah, like I think it's enough where other teams will look at him and say, "Oh, we forgot he's damn good at defense. He's so good at playmaking. Him in the open court is amazing." Like we are harping on how poorly he did in the playoffs, and like that is like
playoffs.
It's a recency bias, though. That is what we've seen so recently, and it's what we're fixating on. When like he has a whole resume of work to suggest that like there are elements of his game that compensate for his shortcomings. It's a question of whether or not you can tap into that extra potential. And so I think when teams are reminded of how good that floor is with him, they're going to be more likely to accept where their team is at currently, shed some assets to go get him, and then be like, you know what, we got a 24 or 25-year-old that we're willing to just like invest a little time in and then get good with. Like he's not even close to his prime. Got 3 years until it even starts.
I can see him going to the Raptors. I think the Raptors would be a good place for him to be.
For sure.
Or trade him to a team that has nothing to lose, like the Kings.
Right.
And just absolutely pace it up.
You try and keep Fox, Mitchell, and him or something like that. And
I mean, you can get rid of Halliburton at this point. You have 3 point guards on the roster.
Yeah. I think you keep Mitchell because he's a strong perimeter defender to contrast Fox. And then you essentially let Ben Simmons play a 4 or a 5. Like you almost treat him like
best case.
I mean, you treat him like you treat Draymond, basically. Like I think that's kind of got to be the mold that he plays better, but the same mold.
I think unless it would be less shooting, less about spacing, and
for sure,
less about horizontal spacing and more about vertical spacing.
100%.
Ben Simmons is going to grab a rebound. And Ben Simmons and De'Aaron Fox. That's what I mean. Like, that's two. They're going
to play with one of the fast. If that happens, they would play with one of the fastest paces in the NBA next season.
Right.
Like, 100%. I mean, they would run and gun, and it would be pretty hard to stop in the open court because those two guys are pretty masterful at that element of the game. But that's why, like, again, I think you have to let a little season go by to remind teams of, hey, Ben Simmons is pretty freaking good. There's a reason we're asking for the Harden element. They're asking for the Harden haul because he's damn good. And so like we've lost sight of that a little bit. And like, yeah, it's easy. It's very easy. And I agree. Like, yeah,
that
he botched it. There's I'm going to give him the thumbs down from the playoffs, but like he's pretty damn good. And most teams
They're
would be lucky to have him on the team.
they're never going to get a James Harden haul for him ever again.
No,
There will
I
be
mean,
no
no,
point
it's
in
not going
Ben
to be that high.
Simmons' career that they'll never get a, if they want another all-star back, it'll be a one-for-one swap essentially. There won't, and some, salary management.
And that's why
But
if the Dame trade is ever on the table, it's happening. That's like the perfect fit of
nah,
how to make a trade happen. It
if
is.
the Blazers give up on anybody, it's CJ. CJ for
Right. But if Dame is like,
Simmons.
if Dame says I want out, they're going to honor that. Like he's been so loyal to the team for so long. Like they're going to do what he wants.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't think
Yeah.
Dame, I think Dame will be a lifelong trailblazer. And I think the organization will make the moves he wants. I think Damian Lillard is a mature enough person, a stable enough person to kind of say, I'll be here for the rest of my life. As long as I see some type of change and I see them actively trying to make me happy, I can stay here.
I could see
That's
it.
all you can ask for. I
But he
that's all you
wants
can
to
ask for.
win. He wants to win so bad. And like if they're not
So then when his
showing
contract's up, go sign with, whoever is the best team in the NBA and win a ring that way.
I think he's a few more
Do it
years
like
though. And I think
Gary Payton on the Heat.
I think he's looking at it where he understands his window's closing. It's almost like how I just said about Westbrook and the Lakers. Like these guys know what they're doing. They're making sacrifices.
A lot of people are like, a lot of people are like, I want to win, but like, you say you want to win. Do you want to win as the best player on your team, or do you just want to win?
But he's going to be the best player on most teams. That's the difference.
But when he's 37, is he going to be the best player on most teams?
No, but I agree. There's a difference between winning a ring when Melo was in New York trying to win a ring versus Melo on the Lakers trying to win a ring. Like there's a huge difference.
Right. And if I'm Melo on New York trying to win a ring, it's less about, here I am trying to be the guy. The best my team can do for me, the best the front office can do for me is show me change. Show me you're trying to put a roster together that would allow me to be the guy to win a championship.
Right.
Right. And if Damian Lillard can't be that guy, then, you can win one when you're 37 and you're just doing it to do it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I do. I think that you can look at it similar to how, Lowry already won one, but him going to the Heat right now is kind of similar because he understands, like, you know what, my window's closing. I'm getting old. I have to go be a second, third option on a team, but I'm willing to do that. I'm still going to make plenty of money.
He was always a second option, right? But
right. No, he was. But he kind of he understands that fate. I think Melo coming off the bench is a good example. I think, Anthony Davis forcing his way to the Lakers, like, he couldn't do it
exactly. It's the same thing. He knew, he was like, I'm never going to be that guy. I should team up with someone who is. But
Damian Lillard isn't built that way. He just hasn't been. He's always been. He's been more of like a Charles Barkley, where you just stay where you're at unless you get traded. Like that's kind of what it feels like.
He just wants to see the change. Give me a Christian Wood or a Ben Simmons or,
What have they done? They haven't. They haven't,
right? But we'll trade CJ. Like they'll trade CJ before they trade Dame.
But they haven't done it. Like, why haven't they? If all summer we've been talking about, Dame might ask for a trade tomorrow, has pretty much been the conversation.
Yeah, but that's just rumors. When you ask Damian Lillard says he's saying. No.
And he's as honest as it gets. So
I honestly think he's a very fundamental person he's like a set of rules. Yeah. And I think loyalty is one of them. I think same thing with LeBron and some of these Cleveland teams or the Lakers teams or wherever it was, you kind of knew he was pulling the strings, right? He was like, I think maybe we should do this. Damian Lillard might be doing the same thing. He might be sticking up for CJ, where the Blazers have said, we called somebody and, we could move CJ for this, and this. And Damian's like, no, I'd rather have CJ here with me. CJ's my friend, right? So.
No, I think it's a good point. Like, I think that team,
you never really know.
That team is definitely not a state of chaos, but a state of uncertainty where something's got to give. And it's a question of what domino falls first. Like made a conference
I feel
championship, and then the team has pretty much been the same or gotten worse since then.
I feel
So,
it's a lot like the Nuggets. Like
but they got
it's
better.
about
If
being
they're
it's about
Jamal
being the
and
best team in your conference,
right,
right? And
and
like the Nuggets are a great team, and they when they can go to a Western Conference Finals or they can beat the Clippers and they can look outstanding. But if you're not LeBron, you think about like those Atlanta Hawk teams or the Toronto Raptor teams that LeBron just absolutely destroyed. Like he, these teams were built over the years, and LeBron just said, "No, you're not good enough for me."
yeah. But I mean, there's
It's the
also
same type of thing. It's like,
I mean, look at Jordan in the 90s. There's a few players who have that presence, and we're just fortunately watching it right now. But last season, for example, I think if that Jamal Murray injury does not happen,
the
they're
Nuggets
coming
could
out
go
of
all
the
the way,
West. They're coming out of the West. Like that team was so good. Like
but that's
after the Aaron Gordon
injuries.
trade, they were so good. No, exactly. It
In
happens. And
in a
like that is
perfect
just part of it.
in
It's
a
just
perfect
part of
world
it.
where no one gets injured, right? Like
Right. Then the
there's
Lakers
only
are coming out anyway. But
it's the Lakers, it's the Clippers because they have Paul George and Kawhi, right? And in the
right.
East, it's you got Kevin Durant, you have Giannis, you have
Right.
there's only five
Right. It's
guys who
part of
can
it.
bring you to a championship.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I know. And that's the thing that I'm intrigued about this coming season is that it feels like a lot of these teams are very deep. So maybe some of these major injuries that happen aren't as derailing. And so I
right?
think we could see a lot of these teams, like for example, the Clippers, they're not going to have Kawhi all year. Team's not bad. Like I think they're still a playoff team for sure. I think you look at the Nets, they're realistically going to be without one of their stars like pretty much every game. I think you look at the Nuggets are not going to have Jamal Murray for a good chunk of next season, if not,
Right.
all of it. Still a playoff team. Like I think there's plenty of ways to navigate an injury. Like I think you look at the Hawks. If the Hawks lose any one number of their guys, they're
They're
still
done.
good.
Yeah.
No,
No,
they're
I don't think they are. If Trey Young goes down, that team's
right.
trash.
But I mean, you could say that about a lot of teams. I mean, like if your best player gets hurt, yeah, it's a little different. But I think if you look at if you look at the Bucks and Giannis gets hurt, odds are they're going to be like probably midway through the season, like towards the top of the standings, and then suddenly be an 8 seed by the end of it because they lose a ton. But like,
Right.
I'm more saying, look at the Heat. If they lose Jimmy Butler in the middle of the season, I'm sure they'll still be a playoff team. They're well-rounded
Yeah.
and deep, and like it'll be okay. Like I think that a lot of these teams, like I don't know, say
If the Lakers lost LeBron, I still think the Lakers could, put
for
together
sure,
a string of games
100%.
where
I think a team of Westbrook and AD would absolutely make the playoffs. I think a team of Damian Lillard without CJ would still make the playoffs. I think a team of, Doncic without Porzingis would probably finish better than a team with Doncic and Porzingis. But like, I just think that there are ways to navigate injuries on a lot of these teams that isn't going to be as punishing. Like I think the Bulls, if they get hurt, like if they lose DeMar DeRozan, like their team's still good. They're still just
right.
as, they can pack a punch. So like, I think everything I've seen this offseason between the rookies in the summer league, the second year players showing improvement, the Olympic basketball from players who aren't normally studs showing up and actually playing so damn
Ricky
well.
Rubio dropped 38 on Team USA.
That's my point. Like I saw so much this offseason with roster construction and all of those elements.
All-star in New York and Evan Fournier,
right? Evan Fournier on the Knicks. But like, again, sometimes it's just little things like that. A good change of scenery.
There's a difference between the games. You saw the Team USA struggle a little bit at the beginning.
Foul calls, whatever it is. But still, like I think there was enough this summer that a month from now when the season starts, it's going to feel and look a lot different than the 2021 season looked and felt. I'm excited. I really like, I think obviously there's still some dominoes that need to fall before the season starts, but like namely, where's Frank Ntilikina signing? But no, I mean, I think
I don't even know if he's going to be in the NBA at this point.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't break my heart.
There might be more money for him to play in Spain.
Honestly, there might, but don't do that. I haven't given up hope. He deserves a roster spot.
He'll be a Spur.
That's a good fit. I like that.
They're gonna lock up the guard spots to Dejounte Murray, Frank.
Well, they might honestly end up trading one of their guards. Like I feel like they're rounding the corner on being like, you know what, we just got to rebuild anyway. So you never know. Trade one of them.
I think
somehow.
Pop's going to retire in a year or two, and they'll
Yeah, I can see
say
that.
we're done here.
I think so too. Speaking of being done here, Luke, we've been on here for like an
Hour and a half.
Good hour and a half. I'm thinking we round this thing up. I'm gonna brush my teeth, go to bed.
Yes.
Check the Mets score, I guess, see if anyone's giving me a thumbs down. But yeah, no.
You know, checking the score.
Oh God, no! I don't even want to know. They had a doubleheader. They won the first game. Comeback win.
They're up 3-1.
Let's go. The New York Mets. We're back.
They had was it a doubleheader though?
They did. They played earlier and they like came back in the bottom of the ninth. It was a miracle. Yeah. So I don't know. Weirdest thing. But yeah. All right. Luke, it was good getting back on the horn here.
This was great.
This time, I assure our listeners we're going to record more frequently. Now that I'm in less of a state of flux and way more grounded in where I'm at, me and Luke can convene more often. I don't know, 3, whoever it is. But you know what? It's happening. We're going to do it more often. We're going to post more, spread the word. It'll work. The Hoop Troop is back, baby.
We're active on Twitter, so.
Yeah, Hondo P. We're back, baby. So yeah, this is the Hoop Troop podcast. Tell your friends. We'll be around.